In this video, we're going to take a look at something called three-dimensional worksheets. We've done stuff with things on more than one sheet in the past, but this time what we're going to do is a couple of things. And the first thing what we're going to look at in this video is formatting multiple spreadsheets, or multiple worksheets I should say, that all look the same. So here's a worksheet that has some information for Boston. It's got Boston office, it's got product 1, product 2, product 3, it's got 4 quarters, and then some sales numbers for the Boston office. And here's one for Chicago, and if you look at it, the format is the same. We've got obviously different numbers here, and it says Chicago instead of Boston, but everything else looks the same. And then we've got an Atlanta office here, same deal. We've got 4 quarters, we've got 3 products, and Atlanta office, and then the numbers for Atlanta. And frequently, you might have, different cities that have the same format. You might have one sheet for January, one for February, and so on throughout a year, where the layout of each sheet is the same. It's only the numbers that are different. And what you'd like to do is you'd like to format them so that they all look the same. And if you've got January through December here and you got 12 worksheets, you really don't want to go through and format 12 worksheets one at a time, and you don't have to. You can format all of them basically at the same time. You just have to group them together first. But before we get to grouping, we're going to look at a couple of other simple things related to having data on multiple worksheets. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to change the names of these from 3-letter abbreviations to the actual name of the city. And there's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to double click on Boston here, and it basically turns into a little one-line word processor. Notice that BOS is selected, so if I type now, I'll delete the BOS. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hit the right arrow and then just type TON and hit enter, and I've renamed the sheet. The other way is on Chicago here. If you right click and you go to rename up here, it basically does the same thing for you. I think it's easier to double click, so that's what I usually do. So type in Chicago, hit enter, and I'm going to double click on Atlanta and hit the right arrow key and ANTA, and now I've changed the names of all 3 of them. So that's pretty easy to do. I also want these to be in alphabetical order, so Atlanta needs to be first, and all you have to do is just click on the tab down here. You see that little black arrow that appears in the top left corner here? That shows you where it's going to go. So I need to move it over here between Boston and Chicago, and one more to the left of Boston. When that arrow gets to the left of Boston, you can let go, and now I've got them in alphabetical order. So you can drag and drop these tabs any way you want to. And now for the interesting part. Whoops, I forgot one thing. You can also color code these. So let's right click here and do tab color, and I'm going to pick from the standard colors row down here, and I'm going to make Atlanta red, and I'm going to make Boston green, and I'm going to make Chicago blue. Okay, and so they all turn different colors. So you could have groups of sheets here, and if they're related in some way, you could make the colors all the same, so it's easy to see which ones are related. So any way you want to color code them, you can. Notice that when I select a sheet, most of the color goes away. Boston is normally, mostly green, except for the word Boston. And when I click on it, most of the green goes away, and it's mostly a white background, but kind of a faded out green gradient down here at the bottom. Same thing for the other ones. And Excel does that, so it's easy for you to see which one is actually selected. The one that's actually selected will look almost white, and there'll be just a slight hint of what the color is on the bottom of the tab. Okay, so now we get to the interesting part. The interesting part is formatting all these sheets to look the same. So first I have to select all of them. So click on Atlanta, and the tab will turn mostly white, and then hold the shift key down and shift click on Chicago. And like most other things in Windows, if you have a list and you click on first item and you shift click on another item, it will select both of those items plus everything in between. And that works with most lists in Windows programs, and it also works with the tabs in a worksheet. Now if you don't want all of them, so you can just click here to undo it. If you don't want all of them, you can just hold the control key down, which is what I'm doing now. Click on, I'm not doing that, I missed it, I was holding down the shift key. Click on Atlanta, hold the control key down, and click on Chicago. And so that's how you can do a non-adjacent selection, and that's pretty much the way it always works in Windows as well. But I want all of these to be selected, so I'm going to click on Atlanta. I'm going to shift click on Chicago, and now I've got all three of these selected. They all turn white. That's how you know that you've got all three of them selected. And there's another thing that happens. If you look up here on the title bar, the word group now appears in square brackets. And that tells me that I'm working with a group of worksheets, not just one. And whatever I do is going to apply to all of them. And most of the stuff looks pretty much the same here on the Home tab, but I want to show you the Insert tab. Take a look at the Insert tab here. And almost everything is grayed out on the Insert tab except header and footer over here. Now watch what happens if I click down here and I only have one thing selected. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with just one worksheet, but those things do not make any sense if you have multiple sheets selected. So as soon as I do the multiple sheet selection, everything up here gets grayed out except for this. So if things are grayed out up here and you think maybe they're not supposed to be, look and see if you've got more stuff selected than just one sheet. That could be the reason. Okay, so what are we going to do here? First thing we're going to do is we are going to merge and center the office name. And that's on the Home tab, so do merge and center. And then we're going to go to our cell styles over here, and we're going to make that a title style. And this title style is for an older version of Office. You know, depending on what your defaults are here, yours may look a little different, different font, but it will be bigger and it will be blue unless you've got some theme selected. So we've got the name of the office selected and centered and made into a title. And then I want these column headings to look a little better too. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make them heading 3. And so they turn blue and bold and they get an underline under. I'm going to take these over here and I'm going to go to my styles here and make those heading 4. And I'm also going to make these a little bit wider here just so they're a little bit easier to read. So let's try that. Remember, if you select all of them, that might be a little too much. If you select all of them, all of the columns, then when you set the width of one, you're setting the width of all. Okay, let's also go here and select the whole sheet. And I'm going to go to, oh, I should have done this sooner. I'm going to go to, let's just do this stuff down here then. And we will make it Verdana. So you can type in the first couple of letters. Only takes 2. And we're going to do 10 point. Okay. This other stuff here is, kind of looks like Verdana. Calibri and Verdana look a lot alike. But it is a little bit smaller, even though it's 11 point, because Calibri is a smaller font. Okay. And I'm going to do something over here with my row headings. These are describing the numbers to their right, and I just think it's a little bit easier if you right align those so they're closer to the numbers. Makes it a little bit easier to read. Okay. Now let's take row 1 here, and we're going to format the first row as accounting. And I don't want any decimal places here, so I'm going to decrease that twice. And you notice now the numbers don't line up anymore because these are formatted as general, and I'm not sure why Excel does this, but if you have accounting or the comma style or currency style selected, it puts a little gap here on the right side of the cell. So I want all these to line up nicely. So I also like to have some commas in here. So we're going to format this as a comma style. And pound signs just mean that I didn't make my column wide enough, but that's okay because I'm going to decrease the decimal places, and when I do, everything will fit. So now that I'm using the comma style and the accounting style up here, I've got the little gap on the right side on each one of these cells, and the columns line up like they're supposed to. Okay. Now let's go down here into A6, and we're going to put the word total there. And it'd be nice if it was formatted like this, but it's not. We're going to do it the easy way, though. We're just going to go up here and click on our Format Painter, and this is our paint. And we're going to dip the brush in the paint, and then we're going to paint the word total, and it's going to be formatted just like Product 3. Okay. Then we're going to go down to the bottom here. We're going to put some sums in. I can just click on Auto Sum over here, and it tries to add those 3 numbers for me, so it looks like I should get 1,310, and I do. And, oh, it was nice enough to put the $ sign in for me. And then I want to copy that across and get the sum for each one of these columns. And you know, if you ever have doubts about that, just click on a cell and double click on it, and you'll see what it's trying to sum. So you know, you can always verify it just by double clicking and looking at the cells that it's using. Okay, we're also going to go to the end of row 2 here, and we're going to do a total for each product. So we're going to call that product total, and again we'll do the format painter. This is our paint. Dip the brush in the paint, and then paint what's in column F. Now it's a little too wide, so we're going to do a little wrap text there, and now it looks better. And then we're going to go into the end, and we're going to sum each row. And there's two ways to do this. You know, you can do the first row and then use the fill handle and copy it all the way down. But another way to do it is just select all of those cells, go here and click on auto sum, and it will automatically sum each one of these rows for you. Now I got the wrong font. It doesn't, I don't think it looks very good mixing up fonts like that. It went back to Times New Roman, and I want Verdana, so type VE or VER, and I want 10 point and hit enter, and now the numbers look the same as they do in the other columns. Okay, these numbers here don't have dollar signs, and these two do, so I'm going to take these two cells right here, and I'm going to format them as comma again and delete the decimal places, and now they're formatted like the other numbers in that row. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to make that into a total cell style, and so do total over here, and when you do that it goes back to the default font, which is Calibri 11, and you know, you can tell it looks pretty good, but it's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to make all of this stuff down here 10 point Verdana as well. So I'll go up here and type in VER and then type 10, and everything fits. And so now, whoops, you know what? When I add that column there, it moved this off center. So now what I need to do is I want to center it over columns A through F. So I'm going to click on Merge and Center. It will undo the Merge and Center, and then I'm going to click and drag and select that extra column F, and I'm going to do a Merge and Center, and now it looks pretty good. And here's the cool part. Go down here and click on Boston and check that out. Column widths are the same. Everything is formatted the same. It's just the numbers are different and the name of the office is different. And that's true for all three of my worksheets. And you could do as many worksheets as you wanted that way. Format one, as long as you've got a group selection, you're formatting a whole bunch of them. So that's 3D formatting, and in the next video we're going to take a look at some 3D formulas.